Rangers have come through with a better offer, and Messersmith decided that he did not want to play in New York for the Yankees. Marvin Miller of the Players Association, the head of the Players Association, criticized Gabe Paul, the Yankee president, for announcing the signing without actually having Messersmith's signature. And according to Marvin Miller, the player himself, meaning Messersmith in this case, must actually sign the contract, that the signature of the agent, Mr. Osmond, is not binding the player to the Yankees. Bowie Kuhn says that the Yankees may have legal rights to Andy Messersmith, and an investigation is on. It may be a while before that one is decided. We'll have to see what happens. Out on the playing field today, they are playing baseball again, of course. The St. Louis Cardinals scored 6 runs in 6 innings against Catfish Hunter, ended the Yankees' 4-game winning streak with a 6-2 victory. The Mets streak continued. They lost their 8th in a row, this time to the Philadelphia Phillies, 4-1. I'd have to say that you really can't get too discouraged by exhibition game losses, but it would be nice to see the Mets win a game at some time or another. The Rangers and the Islanders are up next here in Channel 10 at 7:30. That one, of course, is being played for pride as far as the Rangers are concerned. Islanders want to keep momentum as they're going towards the playoffs, but a Ranger-Islander battle is always meaningful for both clubs. The Nets are out in Indiana to face the Pacers. A victory for the Nets will clinch 2nd place for them. The Knicks, of course, are off tonight. Last night they were eliminated from playoff competition for the first time since 1966. And in case you missed it, last evening the announcement was made about the results of the National Football League expansion draft. The Giants and Jets each lost 3 players, but I don't think either team is going to be hurt too badly by their losses. The Giants lost a couple of young players, Don Clune, the wide receiver from Pennsylvania, Randy Colbert, a kick return man, along with 6-year linebacker Jimmy Gunn. The Jets lost Anthony Davis, who of course is now playing up in Canada anyhow. He'll be possibly, if he decides eventually to sign with the NFL, rejoining his former coach from Southern California, John McKay. The Jets also lost the rights to Larry Woods, the 7th-year defensive tackle, Jerry Davis, 2nd-year defensive back. And John McVay today was hired by the Giants as an assistant coach. He had been very successful as coach of the Memphis team in the defunct World Football League. Let's go right to the phone calls. Don, I'm sure you may have some thoughts on the Messersmith situation, but we'll get to that after we get into some of the phone calls. Good evening. You're in Sports Watch.
Yes, I got a question about Messersmith. I want to ask you, like, will the, say if Messersmith wanted to sign with the Texas Rangers, but will the Yankees get another chance to top them?
I don't know. Well, you're really dealing in a very, very confusing situation right now. If no contract had been signed, and if Messersmith decided to sign with Texas, it's a matter of when he eventually signs the contract. If he signed with Texas and the Yankees came back and offered him a better contract before he signed with Texas, then the Yankees would have that other chance. If he decides for one reason or another that he is going to sign with the Texas Rangers and doesn't want to sign with the Yankees, then they don't get that extra chance. But now you're dealing with a very difficult situation because the contract is not actually, because nobody knows what the contract's signed.
I think it is. The Yankees would have a chance to top any offer that Texas made simply because Texas wouldn't have gotten Messersmith's name on the contract. So it's an open market again, it looks as if, and if the Yankees want to drive the price higher, they probably can, I think.
But you said, Jim said before that he didn't want to play for the Yankees.
Well, it's apparent that the reason he didn't want to play is because Texas came up with a much better dollar offer. He would play for the Yankees if the Yankees gave him more money.
We think. We're not exactly sure. As I stated yesterday, I think there's one very important point to remember in this whole situation, and the fact that I'm not a Yankee fan may color my thinking to a certain degree, but I really would think that it would be in the best interest of all players in baseball, and maybe in baseball in general, if Messersmith did not sign with the Yankees. If he signs with the Yankees, it means that there have been 2 free agents, both of them signing with the New York Yankees for a big contract, and it's exactly what the owners have threatened would happen if every player had the right to become a free agent. And I think if Messersmith, along with what happened with Hunter last year, signed with the Yankees, it will make the owners all that much tougher to negotiate with when it comes to signing a contract with the players, and it will make it tougher for many players to get the rights that they do deserve. And I don't really think, I realize there's got to be a certain amount of free movement, but it would bother me to see a team being able to buy a pennant, purely buying a pennant. I don't know how you feel about that, Don.
I feel pretty much the same as you do, Jim. If Texas can come up with the money and prove that they have money like the other big clubs and can pay these players off, it is better for baseball, I think, in the long run.
Can I ask one more question?
Very quickly, sure.
What do you think? Will Tom Seaver, sign with the LA Dodgers, or will he stay with the Mets?
Well, Tom, of course, can't sign with the Dodgers unless they acquire his rights. I think Tom's going to end up with the Mets. They're getting a little bit closer, and what would happen is that if Tom and the Mets don't reach an agreement, then the Mets would probably trade him to the Dodgers, who I'd assume would reach an agreement with him.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling. We'll be back with more Sports Watch in just a moment.
If if you want this much room and a stable ride and really believe you'll only get it in a bigger car, you're in for a pleasant surprise. Because now you can get that room and ride in the first wide small car, the AMC Pacer. That may explain why half the people buying the Pacer are trading in bigger cars for it. They've also discovered that without all that excess weight, they're getting better gas mileage.
Hear ye, hear ye. If you live in Washington Heights, Inwood, or Marble Hill, there is a newspaper just for you. Read Heights Inwood for all the local news and keep up with all that is happening in your community, plus the many features, local opinions, sports, entertainment, cartoons, crossword puzzle. Heights Inwood, out every Wednesday. Buy your copy today.
Jim Miller, along with Don Jackson back here in Sports Watch, and we've got coming up in just a couple of minutes our outtakes from the Super Bowl. I think you will find these rather amusing, and I certainly hope you'll stay tuned to them. Good evening. You're in Sports Watch.
Do you think if Steve ever got traded that it would do any damage to the Mets?
Unquestionably, it would do damage. Seaver has been called the franchise. He's the major pitcher for that club for the past season. They need him with his 20 games. They've got no one to replace him. Certainly would hurt them, especially since they rely so much on strong pitching.
You know, as we talked about yesterday, I think if they could get Don Sutton along with either Bill Russell or Ferguson, which is what the talk was for Seaver, I don't think the Mets would be badly hurt from an actual player standpoint. I think they'd be getting two good ball players for Seaver, but you can't replace the best pitcher in baseball. And I think it would cause a morale problem among the other players and among the New York fans. Seaver is the franchise. He is what people think of when they think of New York Met baseball. Okay? Thanks for calling. Good evening. You're in Sports Watch.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the Lakers.
Okay.
It's hard to wonder what's wrong with them. I mean, they got such fine talent, Allen, Goodrich, Russell, and Jabbar. I mean, how come they just don't win?
I think the real...
I think Jim and I agree on this. They're very weak at the forward position.
Right.
They've got no one to complement Jabbar, and he has to take too much of the load. Jabbar is the greatest and I think the most dominating player, but he needs support, and he's not getting it up front with the Lakers.
Okay, another is the reason the Rangers can't get rid of Kachuk is because of his contract?
I think that might be part of it, and I think a lot of the other clubs around the league may not respect Kachuk as a hockey player. Ferguson has said he's going to keep Kachuk, so we'll see what happens next season.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, one of the other things when you talk about the Lakers, it's not only the lack of a forward, and you say, well, what's Cassie Russell doing on the bench? It's really the lack of a strong forward, somebody to take much of the rebounding pressure off of Jabbar. And it is proving, I thought the Lakers would do better, but indeed they're proving that you've got to have more than a great center and a great guard. You've got to have a balanced team in the NBA these days to do well. Good evening. You're in Sports Watch. Well, let's see.
Very weak connection.
We're having a problem with this connection. We don't want to insult you by hanging up, but try back again right now because we're not being able to hear anything you say here in the studio. Good evening. You're in Sports Watch.
I was just wondering, I was doing a couple of speculative trades that the Knicks might make. I would say we'll take two trades. One with the Houston Rockets. You would trade a Jackson, a Frazier, and a Monroe to Houston.
Better have a good one for this.
For Newland and Tomjanovich. And the other trade would be Frazier, Jackson, and Ginelli for Walton.
Okay, let's see. The first trade I don't think I'd make. I think you're giving up a little bit too much giving both Frazier and Monroe to get back Newland and Tomjanovich. I mean, you're leaving yourself without... Well, I think
trading the whole Rolls-Royce backcourt there.
I think that the second trade, you know, I don't know if whether the Portland Trail Blazers would do it, but that's one that I might consider.
I like that trade.
The big question I have in my mind is Walton going to be continually injured throughout his career? He has had a lot of problems in his first 2 years, and he does have that bad knee that goes back to his college days.
Question is the health with Walton, but if he is right, I think that would be a good trade, and the Knicks, no doubt, have to seek that big man.
Right. The reason I throw in Monroe, not to say throw in, but you're getting rid of an awful lot of salaries, which make you a little better positioned to go after some of that.
I don't think that's the Knicks' problem.
Money has never been the Knicks' problem. I mean,
well, also you also have two ball players who are both in their 30s in your backcourt, and you're getting a young guard or a good young guard in Newland to replace one of them, and you're getting that strong power forward that you need.
Well, I think you're getting a couple of good ball players, but I think you're giving up a little more than you're getting. I agree you're getting help in the backcourt and you're getting some help up front, and it wouldn't hurt to see Rudy Tomjanovich in the Knick front court, and you are trading some age and getting some youth back, but I don't know if Newland is quite as good a ball player as the type that I'd want. Now, maybe if you had, and I don't think the Rockets would do it, but if you got Calvin Murphy along with Rudy Tomjanovich in that type of a deal, maybe I might consider it then, but
That's
I don't know
lot.
if Houston would do that because of Murphy's popularity.
You'd be stealing from the Rockets in that deal.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Good evening. You're in Sports Watch.
Yeah, we got a connection this time.
Okay, good.
Listen, don't you honestly feel that Phil Sellers proved himself to be the most overrated player in college?
You know, a lot of people have had talks about that over the past couple of days, and my own feeling is that Phil Sellers was a big disappointment during the tournament. He isn't a first-team All-American in my book. He is a publicity man's conception, so to speak. But you can't take away from him the fact that he has had an outstanding career and an outstanding year at Rutgers. He is a very good ball player. You know, I compare him, and I'm very prejudiced, and I go back when I'm comparing college basketball players, I compare him to Jim McMillan, who I had the chance to watch in his 3 years at Columbia. And in my book, the big thing is that Sellers choked, or whatever you want to call it. He didn't come through in 4 consecutive tournament ball games. Now, I can see a good ball player having one bad game every now and then, but when I watched McMillan at Columbia, if he had a bad game and a good game, he'd come back with 5 or 6 good ones to follow that right up. And I really don't think, and McMillan was like second and third team All-American. That's probably where I'd put Sellers, third team, honorable mention, something like that.
Also, how do you think Princeton would have done if they'd gotten to the Final Four instead of Rutgers?
I think they would have played it tight for a while. They would have slowed it down, but I think they would have been really outclassed by super talent in that
I don't
tournament.
think Michigan could be stopped by Princeton. Just too much quickness. But Princeton probably could have given them a better game than Rutgers because they are a an exceptionally smart team. But I don't think that they could have done that much better in overall victory results.
Just one more last thing.
Okay.
What do you think Columbia's chances are for really reaching the big time in college basketball?
I think they're very, very good. They had a very good freshman team this year. I don't think maybe it was quite as great a freshman team as it was built up to be, but it's still an exceptionally good team. You had 2 or 3 outstanding ball players, and actually you're 5 or 6 deep in that freshman group. The varsity played excellent ball throughout the last half of the season, and I think that by next year Columbia is going to win 15 or 16. Tom Penders is going after some top ball players again, and I think if he gets a couple of them, Columbia has a shot in 2 seasons to be in the top 20. I think they've got a good situation with a new gym in New York and the rise in New York basketball, and I think their chances are pretty good.
All right, thanks a lot, Jim.
Thanks very much for calling. Now we go to a little piece that Don and I have been talking about since January and really kind of looking forward to. It's the outtakes. You've all seen outtakes on the Johnny Carson show. You usually don't see outtakes on a sports show, but we try and break the mold here every now and then. And the first group that you're going to see are some voiceover outtakes, and we'll just describe them. This just shows us in some of the moments of our harder work down in Miami at the Super Bowl, and I think if we can roll the tape, some of it will start speaking for itself. There's Don.
I didn't see this, Jim.
Okay.
Sabotaged again.
Now, there's me. Now, this is Mike Delaney, who is a quarterback at Columbia this year, and anyone who's watched Columbia football knows him well. The quarterback for 3 years.
Backwards there.
Yes. He was our cameraman for much of the trip, and Mike showing a great deal of the steadiness and the uprightness, or whatever it is, that displayed his shooting throughout. Now, here's Don Jackson. Now, watch this athletic shot. Now, here are Jackson and Delaney, former quarterbacks, throwing the football around.
There it is.
Now, there's Delaney.
Just the throwing,
the 2 number 10s, and there you see Jackson in the corner. Now, watch these great hands on Don Jackson's part. Whoop, there it goes again.
Jim,
now, Delaney's there again. Now, I think he's going to go back to throw. That's it, Mike. Great form. Now, watch Jackson. Watch Jackson. 2 quarterbacks, 2 athletes, and look at Delaney's look. You missed Delaney's look. You got 2 quarterbacks there, and they threw 3 or 4 passes back and forth, and between them, there wasn't one completion.
Well, I tripped over a wave there. Didn't you see that?
Oh, unfortunately, all the good catches were made by me, but if I was catching, nobody would be there to shoot the home movie, so to speak. Now, the next section you're going to see, you're not going to hear the voiceover. You're going to have to watch very, very closely in this one. This is an interview that Don Jackson starts with a member of the Up With People singing group, which performed at one of the Super Bowl functions. I want you, first of all, to watch. I know it's going to be very difficult to take your eyes off of the young woman that he's talking to, who is rather beautiful, to say the least. But just for the beginning, at least, watch Don Jackson's face as he introduces Jeannie Upoff, who's the girl that he's talking to. After that, we've really cut out Jeannie's answers just to put in Don's questions, because we want you to see some of the depth and the insight that is going to come out of this interview session that Don had. He really, shows a great deal of
What are you
talent.
going to ask a girl who has nothing to say, quite frankly?
Just listen to Don's questions, which we have edited together. Following that is a piece which I think will speak for itself. Let's roll Don and Jeannie up off.
Who is one of the members of the Up With People Review, and first of all, I just saw your act and you're phenomenal, and I just want to say that you typify a lot of the excitement and a lot of the good things that happened during Super Bowl week. How was it arranged that you became one of the entertainers here for Super Bowl week, the Up With People Review? What's your reaction to coming out and entertaining at one of the most beautiful racetracks, I think, in the country, and being, I think, one of the most exciting parts of Super Bowl week? Now, what's the purpose of your group? I mean, you've been, I suppose, touring all over the country. What's the point of the group? I think you hit a lot of the things that are, you know, close to Americans, and I wonder if that's one of your points.
Yes, I think that Up With People's whole idea is to promote brotherhood and an idea that is very worth celebrating, that people are basically good. And
we hope so. They say Super Bowl week is an exhausting time for writers, for fans, for anyone who's involved. They know that the many events and many functions that take place during the week take their toll. With me tonight is one writer who didn't quite make it, and I'd like to introduce him to you, if you would.
I just want to point out that this is Don Jackson. This is the type of work that Don has done during Super Bowl week. You've seen a couple of examples of Don's better pieces of work. Don, could you tell us, what the hell are you doing down here?
Well, I'm trying to revive this dead writer. Some people have said it's Jack Ham, but I don't think that's true.
Well, this is for the air. This is an outtake, as they say.
Okay, well, anyhow, as you can see, Jim, this person is dead, and this is what can happen during Super Bowl week if you're not careful.
That is Don Jackson with Recessa Annie, lest anybody thinks. He saw Recessa Annie and he just went into fits of, he knew he had to have the delusions of grandeur. Now, the next piece is, I'm sure you've seen this on network newscasts, and it does happen to sports announcers too. Little goofs, you could say. And this is something, again, you're going to have to watch and listen very, very closely for what everybody says. It's Don, and even I get into the act a little bit up here. Listen to the first one very, very closely. And the very first words is Don introduces Pittsburgh Steelers' Ernie Holmes.
Why did the Steelers? Why? This is a super gathering.
My name is Ernie Holmes.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm here with Jack Ham, linebacker for the defensive Redskins. Jack, Super Bowl. I'm sorry. Let's roll.
This is the press room at the Conover Hotel. It serves as media headquarters for the members of the... The scene for Super Bowl X is Miami Beach, the home of the beaches, the big hotels, the good weather, which we didn't have. Stop. The scene for Super Bowl X is Miami Beach, no. So Super Bowl week 1976 is now history. The winner of Super Bowl X, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 21-17, as the Steeler fans celebrate in the background here at the Orange Bowl. Although Super Bowl week is now history, to the many fans and to the many entertainers and sports personalities who came to Super Bowl week, the memories of an exciting week and a very exciting football game will remain. Super Bowl X, now history. Super Bowl X, great excitement.
No, back. Now, this upcoming...
Well, I think basically...
This is Paul Zimmerman answering a question about Super Bowl week.
Load them with food and bloat them down with whiskey and get them sort of stupid and a little dazed, so that if there's anything critical they're thinking of writing, their brains are a little too fogged to get it out. Now, as you can see, I'm just...
Is that the case with you?
Well, no, I'm sticking to wine, and the cigars clear my brain. I'm laying off the hard stuff, and I'm managing to... what was the question?
Not fogged at all, are you?
No, I'm in good shape. I'm clear as a bell, and I'm ready to write. I'm ready to treat the New York Post readers to what? Huh?
I think a little bit of classic footage. What are the defensive Redskins?
Geez, Jim, you know, Paul Zimmerman put it all into focus with that last piece. Really, you're woozy down there. The week is very hectic, and the mistakes really do come.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As we saw, Jim.
Let's go back to our telephones. Good evening, you're in Sports Watch.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to ask both of you what you think about the seeming inability of the Mets to make a decision with Tom Seaver.
Oh, I think they're playing a cat-and-mouse game more than anything else. I really don't think it's an inability in the Mets' part to make a decision as much as they're going to hold out for as much as they can. When it became apparent to them that Seaver was pretty firm in what he stood for, then they decided to get down. Both of them have bent a little bit, and I think that they will come together.
I sort of disagree. I've sort of been weighing around in my mind the theory that if they don't go through with this now, I think probably the best thing is for Tom Seaver to be traded, because we all know that the Mets are very weak in several positions. And to me, this opens up the possibility for them to make the trade, maybe to strengthen themselves a little bit at one of the positions.
No, I agree. I think that if the Mets do decide, if the Mets and Seaver don't come together, I think that some kind of a deal will be made. And as we've stated earlier today, and we stated the other day on Sports Watch, I think the deal that's proposed with the Dodgers is not a bad one for the Mets. I don't think they're being beaten.
I agree with that. I think that maybe the Don Sutton thing, although now with Messerschmitt possibly going to the Yankees, that we've lost a little bit of the color to this whole thing. I had a feeling that the Mets in the background were hoping that they would land to Sutton and Ferguson and still have that opening with Messerschmitt.
Well, the Mets are claiming, and I think they're right, that why should they pay Messerschmitt the $1 million he's asking for when they won't give it to Tom Seaver, who they think is a much better pitcher. In fact,
tonight in the papers, I don't know whether you had a chance to see the final in the Post tonight. They were talking about the Mets had actually offered Messerschmitt something like $750,000 to sign with them.
For how many years?
For 4 years.
For 4. Well, but that's under $200,000 a year, and Seaver's, you know, that's a reasonable offer, I think, but it wasn't enough for Messerschmitt. I think his view of himself was a bit overinflated, but apparently the Yankees and the Texas Rangers seem to feel it's worth it.
Well,
We've got to run.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. We'll be back with more Sports Watch in just a moment.
In this automated age, Mercedes-Benz believes there are still times when no machine can match a good pair of hands. Smoothing, shaping, polishing, feeling. The human touch, doing things no machine was ever geared to do. A bit unconventional in this automated age, but Mercedes-Benz has never built conventional cars. Mercedes-Benz, engineered and built like no other car in the world.
Let me in! I know it's not 9 o'clock yet. Excuse me. Hello there. What is this?
So you're open early now, huh?
Many of our branches are.
Well, it's about time.
Oh, you're just making a deposit.
What's the matter? Isn't it big enough?
No, it's just that you could have dropped it into our quick time deposit box.
You're all being very nice.
And I don't like it. New York, a city that's hard to please, but Manufacturers Hanover is trying. It's banking the way you want it to be.
For Upper Manhattan's finest Italian cuisine, come to V&T Pizzeria and Restaurant, located just a few blocks from Columbia University on Amsterdam Avenue between 110th and 111th Streets. V&T's menu is famous for such dishes as rollatini, veal parmesan, fine pizzas, and outstanding desserts like this cheesecake baked right in the premises. V&T is open daily for lunch and dinner and late evening snacks. So for fine Italian food and outstanding service, as well as Manhattan's most reasonable prices, come to V&T Pizzeria and Restaurant, where you'll have a thoroughly enjoyable dining experience.
Jim Miller back with more Sports Watch, along with Don Jackson. Back to the phones. Good evening. You're on the air. Hello?
Another bad connection on that line.
I think we got a problem in this line, unfortunately. Good evening. You're in Sports Watch.
Good evening, Jim. Good evening, Don.
Good evening, sir.
I just saw the film before with Don Jackson. And
marvelous film, wasn't it?
All I saw was a man having a lot of fun.
Exactly. She's here.
As far as Spencer Haywood, how do you think he feels about the beat he gave with Bill Russell when he was with the Supersonics? The way the Supersonics are now, in comparison to the Knicks, do you think he might feel sorry that he gave up such a protest with Bill Russell with the Seattle?
I don't think so. I think he was very unhappy with Russell because he wasn't getting along with him. It was a personal thing, I think, between Russell and Haywood. I think he's just as happy to be in New York and playing for the Knicks and hopefully maybe giving New York a championship. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Spencer's very happy in New York.
Also, do you think it's possible that you can get the phone system to adjust a little bit better? Because I called and then I got whoever answers the phone.
Well, we have to work on that. You know, it's...
No, we do unfortunately have a problem.
You understand what I'm saying?
We have a problem in one line tonight. We know.
I called and then I was disconnected, and I had a recall.
Right. We have a problem in one line, which we actually, it emerged during the middle of the show because in the beginning of the show there was no problem, and those are things that happen.
It's not your fault per se.
Well, it's something that can happen. We got to run for a commercial, okay? Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more in just a moment.
Wearing eyeglasses is a private matter, and Private Eyes makes beautiful people through beautiful glasses. We have over 1,000 frames to suit your daily whims and total look. You can choose from our designer frames such as Bausch & Lomb, Dior, and Pucci, for the trim short do, for the all-around guy, for the seasoned sophisticate, or for those who prefer contact lenses. We'll match your eye needs with the latest trends in fashion, because when it comes to investigating the best look for you, we're number one. Private Eyes, 2301 Broadway.
Paxton's Public House on 2nd Avenue at the corner of 74th Street features an enclosed outdoor cafe where the girl watching is unsurpassed and the finest food in the neighborhood is prepared by Chef Raymond. Whether your appetite craves a hamburger, a super chef salad, or a delicious entree, which includes a variety of omelets, chicken marengo, prawns portobello, or steak au poire, among others, you'll find our quality and prices unbeatable. And for the romantics in the crowd, Paxton's new intimate back room features candlelight dinners and music from 8 to 11 with the same menu at no increase in prices. For partygoers, Paxton's has showcase entertainment starting at 11 p.m. on Wednesday through Saturday nights. So obviously there's no getting around the fact that Paxton's has what you need for an enjoyable evening out. That's Paxton's Public House, 2nd Avenue at 74th Street. And back here with Sports Watch, wanted to remind you something we mentioned yesterday, and that is that our full Super Bowl special, without the outtakes, but we think it's going to be kind of an entertaining show, will be on as part of a 1-hour Sports Watch special before the final Knick game that we've got on during the week, that is. That's next Thursday night, April the 8th. The 8 o'clock is our starting time because the Knick game begins at 9 o'clock. We'll have the Super Bowl special at 8, followed by Sports Watch at 8:30, the finale, so to speak. And as we mentioned yesterday, we do hope that we might be able to be on during the summer, starting around the 1st of June on Monday nights. And just to watch out throughout the summer, glance occasionally at your automated channels or the New York Times listings for announcements. It would be Monday evenings at 7 o'clock. Probably around the 1st of June, and if we're able to do it, we certainly hope that we will be able to for you. Good evening, you're in Sports Watch.
Jim, hello, Don. I have a question about Andy Messersmith.
Okay, very quickly. We're out of time almost.
Okay, well, if the Yankees do get Messersmith, do you think that he and Captain Hunter will give the Yankees maybe a playoff spot in pitching?
I think that with Andy's Messersmith... Start again.
That name is awfully tough for people to
I think
say.
that with Messersmith and Hunter and the staff together, the Yankees will certainly have a shot at the playoffs. You know, you got to remember Baltimore still has got an outstanding staff with Grimsley and Jim Palmer, and the Red Sox have Ferguson Jenkins with Tiant. So there are several tough teams in the league. I don't think it guarantees the Yankees anything, but I think it improves their chances. As of right now, without Messersmith, I don't see the Yankees winning the pennant in the East. With Messersmith, I think they have a shot, okay? Okay, thanks for calling. Good evening, you're in Sports Watch. Well, still having trouble on that line. Good evening, you're in Sports Watch.
Why do you think Messersmith doesn't want to sign with the Yankees?
Money.
Right,
One
money.
word.
That's it. We're out of time. Thanks for calling. Remember to join us next Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for the Super Bowl special. Sports Watch files at 8:30 for Don Jackson. This is Jim Miller. Thank you for joining us.